In this video, we're going to be talking about stressed lawns and diseases. Now, if you are currently spraying for weeds, doing fertilization and weed control for your customers, that's great. If you aren't, I highly recommend getting into this service. There is a lot of profit that you can make, up to 35% profit margins in the fertilization and weed control service category. So it's also a very, very easy upsell if you're already mowing and doing landscaping services. Now, today, what we're going to be talking about is how to handle stressed lawns. When you're out there fertilizing or there's some patchy areas in the lawn, how do you address this with the customer? How do you do the walkthrough and really diagnose it to make sure that, if it is a disease, we need to treat it accordingly? Because the last thing you want to do, although this is a very profitable service, it can also be a very expensive fix. And if you get pinned by the customer that you killed their lawn, that could be a very bad day. Because we used to do sod jobs back in the day, and we're talking small cookie cutter properties. You're looking at a $3,000, $4,000, even $5,000 resod job. I'm going to walk you through how to talk to the customer when you go out to the lawn assessment, diagnose things, and let's get into it. So I went ahead and pulled a picture of one of our customers that sent over a really concerning area. We are down here in the great state of Texas, so we get a lot of heat. So this was a little bit after the heat that, came through 100-degree temperatures in June, July, August. This is kind of what I literally just did the other day to go out. Now, what I will tell you is anytime that you go out and talk to these customers, I always go in there with an investigation mindset. All right. So when I first arrived to the scene and I go out there, I'm really asking a lot of questions. Clearly, they're upset. The customer's upset that their lawn looks like this, but we need to come down and figure out why. Is it from us? More than likely, no, it's not. It's due to other conditions. So first thing, what I like to do is I say, look, how often, how many days a week are you watering? And this particular customer that I was meeting with said that they were watering one time a week because there was watering restrictions in June, July, August because of the drought that we were experiencing. First off, in June, July, August, we recommend 4 to 5 days a week, 10 minutes a zone. I understand if there's watering restrictions, but we need to cycle it on that one watering day that we get. Otherwise, the HOA and the city that's putting these restrictions on aren't going to pay for your new lawn. Newsflash. So you need to make sure you're watering this. And in this scenario, this customer was not indeed hitting the 4 to 5. So that was my first identification. Number two, I also ask, at what time of the night are you beginning to water? Because if they water too soon in the night at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, what happens is the water can sit on the lawn, saturate it, and then diseases can form because of too much water. And then the last thing I like to ask is how many minutes each zone. I've had customers that are like, yeah, I run them every day, and they're running them for like 2 minutes a zone. And it's like, that's not enough water. Or you get the opposite. They're like, yeah, I water so much. I water for 30 minutes straight each zone. And it's like, okay, we live down here in Texas, depending on where you're at, there's only so much water the ground can uptake. So if you're watering it for 30 straight minutes, realistically, only the first maybe 7 or 8 minutes is actually getting into the soil. The other 22 minutes of you running the sprinkler is just running off down the street. These are the types of things that I like to ask, because what we have to communicate to the customer when we're doing this lawn assessment is, I understand you're frustrated. I understand you're upset that your lawn looks like this. However, we have to understand that we are dealing with a living organism when we're talking about grass. It's alive. It needs water and it needs sunlight to flourish. And too much of either or can stress out the plant and the grass. Too much sun with not enough water will definitely stress it out. Way too much water with not enough sunlight will also stress it out. So there has to be that balance there of enough sunlight and enough water to have a nice, healthy lawn with our fertilizers and pre-emergence that we like to do as well to take care of the weed. Once you establish that with the customer and explain that to them, I think it brings their guard down of them being like, I've been on your program for a year and my lawn looks like this. And it's like, okay, but were you watering 4 to 5 times during the summertime or no? Or like, were you overwatering and letting the water saturate? So we recommend, instead of watering super early in the night, start watering at like 3 a.m. That way, by the time it it goes through the cycle, which is like an hour and a half, by the end of it, because there's typically 8 zones, 10 minutes a zone, roughly an hour and a half. By the end of it, it's only sitting there with wetness on it for maybe an hour until the sun pops up at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. Okay, so we go out there, we diagnose this lawn. I'm going to share with you guys exactly what I talk to the customer on. Now that we know too much sunlight or too much water will stress out the plant, just because the grass is stressed does not mean it needs a fungicide to take care of the disease. And all the fungicide does is eradicate the disease. It doesn't necessarily repair the lawn immediately. It just eradicates the disease, because these things can move very, very quickly and take over a lawn, forcing a customer to have to resow their entire lawn. We want to catch this before. So when I went out there, right in this section here, it was yellow. It's not a great photo because it's in the shade, but this whole section, like I'm going to kind of color it in right here, was yellow. Now, yellowing can occur for multiple different reasons. You can have a dog urine, pees in the same spot, like that could cause it to be yellow. But in this scenario, I did my investigation, asked my questions, and found out that the customer was not watering enough during June, July, August. So this area was stressed. Now this area back here was gray. The blades and the roots turned gray. When you see grayness, this is a telltale sign of disease. I identified this, talked to the customer and said, look, this area is pretty stressed. This area has now turned to a disease. If the grass is stressed out for too long, this is what causes and leads to disease. The plan of action for this moving forward on this lawn, realistically speaking, this back here is very green. Up here is nice and green. This lawn is going to take at least 12 months to be fixed. I believe it's recoverable. With a good program that I'm about to share with you on how to fix this, this will, I believe, be fixable within 12 months, as long as we hit it with a fungicide immediately to eradicate the disease. So here's basically the game plan that I gave to the customer. For this lawn, number one, the first step is we need to hit it with a fungicide immediately, ASAP. Like within the next week, we got to get our guys out here. Now for our program, this is an upsell because, again, we didn't cause the disease. They did by not watering. So we charge double the price for a regular lawn treatment to do a fungicide. So we'll come out, do the fungicide. Once it gets watered in, it'll eradicate the disease. Step number two, most customers are like, well, I want to pause my weed treatments and my pre-emergence and all this stuff. The last thing you want to do is actually stop treatments, because we want to continue the treatments and shift over to a special fertilizer that has very, very low nitrogen. We do not want to come out here and put more nitrogen on the lawn and blast it with nitrogen. It will make it worse. We also don't want to go out and put pre-emergent down. It will make it worse. We need to use a special fertilizer for the next 6 to 12 months on this property every single time. Even if it's a pre-emergent round, I don't care. We're shifting to a special fertilizer that will focus on developing and strengthening the root system of the grass, making it a deeper root system, deepening the root system to help fight against diseases. There's a big misconception out there of customers being like, well, I want to stop all my treatments because my yard looks horrible. It's like, no, we identified there's a problem. We identified there's a disease. We need to hit it with a fungicide. Now we need to hit it with special fertilizers continually, and then just spot spray the weeds. You don't want to blanket weed control on this stuff because it will stress it out. Just spot spray them individually with a backpack. That's step number two, continue treatments. Step number three, for the next fertilizer round, what you will want to do, and what I recommended to the customer, is to get good, healthy topsoil from Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever. I'm not talking about the bags of dirt that have really large mulch chips in it. That's not what I'm talking about. You want good nutritional soil. To get, 6 to 8 to 10 bags. He probably realistically needs like 10 bags because this is almost like a third of his lawn back here, almost a half. Cut the bags open, pour it out. You want about an inch or two deep of good foundational nutritional topsoil all in these areas right here. I would spread it out. They can use a rake. Now, we don't offer this service. We tell the customer to do it for themselves. What that will do is it'll establish a good foundation for when we do come out and put the fertilizer down. The fertilizer will start to crawl in and fill in those bare areas. This one is pretty bad. I normally don't see it this bad. I normally see like patches or circles. Like I said, I do believe this one is recoverable, but those are the 3 steps. Number 1 is a fungicide. Number 2 is continued treatments. We'll use special fertilizers. That's where you go and update the notes on the job. Hey, we found a disease. The next 6 to 12 months until it recovers, we need to use special fertilizers. And then number 3 is going to be putting some good nutritional topsoil down on this customer's property. With all that being said, what I like to do is I like to send them an email regarding the game plan moving forward, because there's one big thing we left out. The reason why it caused the disease is because they weren't watering properly. So we have to make sure that the customer is educated that next year, next summer, when it's June, July, August, and they put watering restrictions on, when we say 5 days a week to water, 10 minutes each zone, when it's 100 degrees in Texas, we mean that. And even if there's a watering restriction that says you can only water 1 day a week or 2 days a week, I don't care. If it's 1 day, guess what? We're going to start to cycle 5 times on that 1 day. So instead of starting at 3 a.m., sure, we'll start at midnight. Start the first cycle. Let it go through 10 minutes each zone. And then right after that, we'll cycle it again. 5 cycles when it's that hot. If it's spring and fall, 2 to 3 cycles, right? As long as you're getting that per week cycle, it's very, very important that the grass is getting enough water that it needs. I've seen diseases be formed in spring, fall, and winter time down here. Why? Because the customer is watering 5 days a week in November. And you don't need to do that when temperatures are 50 degrees outside, 60 degrees. Educate these customers and your team that there are certain times of the year that the water needs to be put on the grass. Okay, so hopefully this helps. This is kind of a more in-depth video for fertilization and weed control. If it did, hit the like button. I wanted to tell you, guys, I'm serious. Fertilization and weed control, as much as like these diseases and stuff could be a little bit of a headache, just from my experience, just so you guys know, I have never had to resod a customer's lawn. So don't be too scared on it. Don't let that deter you on why you don't want to get into fertilization and weed control. It is a phenomenal upsell. Phenomenal upsell. If you are mowing lawns and you're not doing fertilization and weed control, you are missing out on so much revenue. You're literally already selling the customer on mowing. It's so easy to be like, hey, customer, you have weeds. Here's our weed control program. And now that customer almost doubles the value of what you get off of that one customer. In fact, so much so that in our business, we require that each customer have weed control and mowing services. We don't even offer just mowing services by itself. That's how confident we are in our ability, because it's just an easy revenue maker upsell, and the profit margins are amazing on it. 35, I've even seen 40, sometimes 45% profit on fertilization and weed control. If you guys are interested in our fertilizer and weed control program, I do have a training course. I give out our 8-round program. Now, this is primarily going to be focused on people that are in, I believe it's the southern region. So Texas, and then all the states basically east and west of that. So we're in North Texas, a lot of Bermuda grass, a lot of St. Augustine, and a lot of zoysia. If those are the 3 types of grass that you have in your area and you're looking to get into the fertilization and weed control, I have a great course. It's like, I think $49. And guys, I don't make any money on it. It pays the bills and it pays the editor. Shout out to Logan to edit these videos. Go ahead, check it out. If you guys are interested, highly recommend it. You can make a lot of profit. And hopefully this video helped you guys identify disease and communicate effectively to the customer.